welcome you to the 2023 Glendora State of the City. My name is Joe Cena, the President and CEO of the Glendora Chamber of Commerce, and it's a pleasure to be here with you all today. We have a nice crowd here. Look at this. Let's give you all a round of applause. The Chamber is proud to be able to host this for the city each year. You know, and today you're in for a treat, because today you're going to hear from 7 different presenters. So for the next 4 hours, we're going to, no, they promised me just a minute apiece. No. But you're going to hear from Mayor Boyer, different department heads and such, to really get to know what's going on in the city currently and in the future. So, okay, as I mentioned, you're in for a treat, and we're going to start right away. So at this point, I would like to bring up our Chamber Board Chair, Ashley Rosati Kaiser. Come on up to welcome you and to introduce our Mayor, Gary Boyer. Change this over here real quick.
Oh. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's so great to see familiar faces and new faces. This is a packed house. I'd like to thank Joe and Sasha, our staff at the Chamber, for putting this all together, because without them, none of this would be possible. So thank you so much, Joe and Sasha, for all the hard work you guys do at the Chamber. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mayor Gary Boyer, who was first elected to the Glendora City Council in 2015. He and his wife, Kathy, have lived in Glendora since 1981. They relocated from Ohio in the 70s. Took a few years, but they ended up landing in Glendora in the 80s. Mayor Boyer is currently retired, although I think he got back into being rehired for all the community advocacy and work that he does. He was a business owner of Southland Properties, located in the Glendora Village, which has been there since 1987. He's the past president of the Rotary Club of Glendora, a volunteer for Meals on Wheels, the current president of Glendora's Coordinating Council, a member of the Glendora Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, a founding member of the Glendora Village Business Improvement District, and was vice president of Glendora Youth Basketball for 20 years, where he also served as a coach for 35 years. So you can see why he's really not retired. Mayor Boyer also represents the city of Glendora on a variety of committees and boards throughout the state, and he does an excellent job advocating for all of the different entities here in town, the residents and the business community. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming our esteemed mayor, Mr. Gary Boyer.
First, I want to welcome everybody to the 2023 State of the City Address for the City of Glendora. For those of you who know me, I have proof today that I do know how to tie a tie. Okay, I can actually dress up when needed, and for those of you that don't know me, I dress like this all the time. I get up every day like this. I want to acknowledge the CEO of Foothill Transit, of which I serve on the executive board. Doran Barnes is here, but Doran gave me a little bit of a challenge when he got here today. He let me know that one of my colleagues at their State of the City address, she came out dressed as Michael Jackson, and she did a number with one of the groups in town. Now, I promise you I'm not going to do that, but Mendel, next year, if you're up here, we'll be looking forward to it, okay? You know, I also would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that with us today, you know, my wife, Kathy, who actually does most of the work for the city, and I just take credit for it. I go home and say, babe, can you give me a hand with this? And she's always there for it. And then my son, Daniel, and his wife, Lori, are both here joining us today. You know, if you've been to this before, it used to be a joint program with the schools and the city. And Joe decided after we came out of our couple of year vacation from doing anything, that he would separate the two. So what we have now is a State of the City address, which last year was the first time we did that, and Karen Davis was our mayor last year. I know Karen's here somewhere. Oh, right behind, okay. And, but she did a great job. Stood up here, talked for 45 minutes, shared everything with everybody, and you do not want to hear me talk for 45 minutes, okay? I can assure you that. But one of the things we're going to do today, we're going to hear from our city manager, assistant city manager, and some of the department heads to give us updates on everything that's happening in the city. One of the things that we do, what we feel like we do a pretty good job with at the city is trying to disseminate information to everybody. We got a town, we think of Glendora as being a very small town. We look around here, most people in here know each other. But it's a city of 50,000 people, and it's hard to get the word out to everyone. This is one opportunity that we have to bring everybody into the fray, share this information, share all of the things that our city staff does, and share all of the good things we have to look forward to in the community as we move forward. This event's going to be recorded, and I'm sure Joe will have it placed on virtually every site that he's tied to. And if you know Joe, he's tied to just about every website in the city of Glendora. But we'll also be doing presentations, abbreviated presentations, the rest of the year. If anybody is interested in doing that, reach out to me and I'd be happy to come around. Those of us that live here, we know Glendora's always been a very family-oriented community. It's a very welcoming community, and we know that because we live here. One of the things we sometimes forget is how great of a city staff we have. And we have people that are working when most of us are home in bed. They're working on things, trying to deal with stuff that's happened in the past, and they're trying to plan for the future for my grandkids when they're coming to these events. It's important to remember the city councils and the mayors that came before us that have laid the foundation for what Glendora is today. And that's what today's about. Today's about hearing from the people behind the scenes that really have the knowledge, they have the ability, they have the skill set to keep this city running. And they're the important people behind we get credit for the five of us, so we get credit for a lot of things. We take the blame for things when they get messed up too. But it is the people behind the scenes that have the opportunity to do this. Glendora's not a perfect community, but we've always had a high quality of life here, and a lot of that has to do because of events like this and the attendance we get to things. We've always had great partnerships between the residents of the community, the city, the business community, the schools, and the many volunteers and service organizations that we have in town. And everybody working together is what makes Glendora what it is today. So today we're going to hear about how we communicate. We're going to hear about some of our financial status, which is we're in a very, very good place. We're going to hear about safety from the chief. We're going to talk about some infrastructure projects and water conservation. With all this rain, we still need to talk about water conservation. It's one of those things, my wife actually made the comment to me this morning, I don't know if anybody heard, but Metropolitan Water District removed their watering restrictions. Well, I don't think any of us have watered our lawns for quite some time, but the water restrictions were put in place because we had dire conditions. We need to remember that we still need to conserve water. We're living in the middle of a desert that we have decided to make green. So we'll hear a little bit about that. We're going to hear about recreation from John. Homelessness, that's a subject on top of everybody's mind right now. Development, which is also a subject on everybody's mind. I was in a meeting this morning before I came here about some new housing laws that are coming our way. And then we're going to finish up with the library. Everything the library has, the library is the heart of our community and the future of the library as we move forward. So you're going to be hearing a lot. We're going to have some good food. And at this point, let's get started. We're going to start with our city manager, Adam Raymond. Adam's been with us, believe it or not, those of you that know and pay attention, Adam's been here coming up on 5 years already. He moved to Glendora from Riverside when he got the job here. He kept this city running through COVID with the help of a lot of people that are in this room. and he spearheaded Measure E, which, none of us like new taxes, but sometimes you need to talk about reinvesting into our community, and that's what the residents of Glendora chose to do with that. So with that, I'd like to welcome our city manager, Adam Raymond.
We'll hold this and walk around a little bit. I heard all of you say on 5 years the ooze. I'm just as surprised as all of you were still here after 5 years. So with that, I'll move to a little bit where I can see here. So Glendora is a city that listens, and lucky for all of you, you're going to hear lots of department heads, and there will be a test afterwards to see how well all of you listen as well. So the city does a community survey, which is a periodic assessment of what the community wants. It's actually a scientific survey done by a third party. We've done 6 in about a 12-year period, the most recent of which is 2022. And I apologize for all of you in the back. We'll see if you have glasses on. But this is a summary when we ask a question in the community survey about what is the #1 thing we can do to improve the quality of life. And in 2011, it appears the city was on a honeymoon with all of its community because everything was fine. There were no changes that were necessary. And in 2014, limiting growth and development rose to the #1 thing, followed by, I'm not sure, I can't think of anything. To put this in perspective, in 2011, when it was not sure, I can't think about anything, that was about 15% of the population didn't know. However, in 2014, 2016 and 2018, limit development became the #1 overall concern in the city, reaching about 20% of all respondents. This was an open-ended question. People were asked this question and we grouped those responses together. And what is my favorite thing in 2018 though, the #1 response was limit growth, followed by not sure, followed by improved dining and shopping, and 1 and 3 do not go together. In 2019, we asked the question again. When we began to see a rise of homelessness in the state of California, the Martin v. Boise case changed how we could fundamentally address homelessness. We did a survey based on homelessness, but we asked the quality of life question as well to try to get a baseline. Homelessness rarely shows up in any of the top 5 in the previous years, but it jumped to #1. And in fact, it jumped to 27% of overall respondents, which is the single highest response the city's ever had in the history of the community survey. Followed again by not sure, I don't know. So in 2022, when we did the survey again, it was really important for the city on a couple thresholds. One, we were coming out of COVID, we were coming out of social unrest. There was a lot of things happening, not just in our community, but in the state, in the world, in the United States. And the #1 thing popped up again was addressing homelessness, but it went from 27% of respondents to 22%. So we are making improvements, and you'll hear a lot about that this afternoon. But one of the most important things that popped up next was we need to improve dining, shopping, entertainment opportunities. But that level exceeded most of the respondents at first. So the community was more focused on addressing homelessness, more focused on improving quality of life through dining and other shopping opportunities. Limiting growth and development moved all the way down to the 5th most important thing in the community, down from a high of about 20% to about 6% of respondents. If we look at the data in a slightly different manner here, and I'm colorblind, some of you know, so we'll just make this up as we go along. But you'll have to trust me that 88%, 89% of respondents in 2022 still think Glendora is a good or great place to have a high quality of life. What was so remarkable about this is many of our peers that did this study saw scores in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And again, as we came out of COVID and we came out of social unrest, the city of Glendora, through many of its actions, was able to still maintain a very high quality of life for a great many people. When we look at city services, you'll hear from the library. Our public thinks the library, almost 96% of respondents thinks the library provides great or good services. It's the highest. We always have a joke that is the Parks and Recreation, the police department, or the library. Those 3 always are in the top 3 and they come through again. But what's really important is from maintaining parks to preparing for emergencies to managing traffic, managing growth, more than 50% of respondents in all of those categories still think the city does a really good job in those areas. So definitely room for improvement, but overall the city does a good job. Addressing homelessness is the one area that we need improvement according to the public through their response. How does this work and how does the city listen? So the city has a strategic plan. In fact, on March 9th, we just had a special planning meeting where we talked about our upcoming strategic plan for 2023 and 2025. What we hear in the community survey and what many of you tell the city council and tell staff and we address how things work show up in the strategic plan. And the city has 7 goals. And over the past 4 years, we've added 2 goals while implementing strategic economic development, maintaining financial stability and sustainability, enhancing employee development and retention, enhancing and modernizing the organization, and improving and maintaining the city's infrastructure has stayed the same. Due to the responses on homelessness, that goal was added 3 years ago, and due to really this overwhelming support of the community that wants to be re-engaged, and to a staff member that's here from the city will tell you is we missed all of you. We miss seeing you in our facilities. We miss fixing potholes and getting phone calls. We don't miss all the craziness sometimes on social media that occurs. We don't miss all the emails that we get sometimes, but we miss all of you. And that came out as a goal, is how do we get re-engaged, from additional proactive measures in the police department, crime advocacy, to inviting more people in, reimagining those services. And the city council really wants us to continually find ways to re-engage the community. So we look forward to adding that goal as well. Just for a frame of reference, we met last week. The city council approved those 7 goals, 49 objectives, which have over 200 major tasks associated with them. The website was on the previous community survey, and you can also see it on our strategic plan here as well, cityofglendora.org/strategic plan. So how does a budget play into all this? So we like to say, or I guess I like to say, what gets funded gets done. So it's one thing to have all these pretty pictures and things that we're going to do. It's another thing to incorporate them in the city's annual spending plan. And every year for the past 3 years that's occurred, the city will embark on a new 2-year budget where we will allocate these 7 goals and tasks and resources to ensure that staff has the tools at their disposal, and council can hold us all accountable as staff to ensure that we're going to meet those expectations, not just of the council, but also the community, largely set forth in the community survey. And so you can go to our website, finance reports, cityofglendora.org, and you'll find information like this, which provides a really high level, the average person can understand it, but also talks about Measure E and how we spend that money and how we reinvest our community and improve public safety. And with that, Mayor, turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you. You know, one of the big things Adam's been able to bring to the city is being able to explain a lot of this stuff that was, above our pay grade before. The budget and the brief that we have out, how many people have actually seen that? Okay, not as many as we'd like. We need to get that distributed because it does spell out very easily and in simple language exactly what we do here. And it's important that everybody understands where all your money goes. Well, next up, we're going to be hearing from our police chief, Matt Egan. Matt actually grew up here in Glendora, right? I think you started with the city in the community services department. You were the guy handing out the equipment down at Finkbinder Park?
John was my boss.
John was your boss. But he's been with the police department for 30 years now?
33 years.
Okay, and doing a great job with us. So Matt, welcome Matt Egan.
Before I start, if you were paying attention and Adam said there was going to be a test at this, did you notice in 2022 in the survey what the number 1 and the number 4 items were? They were homelessness and public safety. A sense of safeness or a good quality of life when it comes to addressing crime and public safety. And that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit today. First and foremost, we focus and drill down our stats based upon community concerns. And again, I apologize for the font. For those in the back, it's small. I'll just cover the highlights. We break it down into calls for service related to homelessness, which could be either criminal or humanitarian. Crimes against persons, so that's a violent crime committed against a person. Crimes against property, that's when something of yours that is stolen, like your car gets stolen or your house gets broken into. And then traffic collisions. In total, we look at years between, to do comparison data. And what we all are aware of, and acutely aware of, is that 2020 significantly skewed statistics. And so I purposely left those out because the majority of crimes that were being committed in 2020 are not being committed now because our way of life was significantly altered during that period. So when we look at 2021 to 2022, our average number of calls for service, get ready for this, people who don't know, we average about 21,000 calls per year into our police department. 21,000. Of those, about 2,300 involve homelessness situations. And we'll talk more about homelessness. This is the #1 concern on the survey, and so we're highlighting it here both on the public safety side, and then again, you're going to hear about it later, and also how we're using our Measure E money to address that. Crimes against person calls, crimes is down. We have about 500 of those. Property crimes, which is our mainstay in Glendora. If you look at the San Gabriel Valley or California average using FBI statistics, we are a property crimes heavy place. And there's a reason for that. We have a little bit greater crime than the communities next to us, but it's because we do a better job reporting that crime in the statistical data portion. Oftentimes, agencies will skew data or not or underreport data to make themselves look a little better. We're very accurate with our data collection and response, and so we tend to show up on the high side when it comes to the crime index, and property crimes is our leading cause. Traffic collisions, we average between 400 and 500. We're at 490 this year so far. And again, we're there when you need us. Our goal and our mission at the police department is very simple. We want to provide a high quality of life and provide a safe environment for everyone who works here, lives here, and wants to come and visit here. And so we're present, we're out there, and we're doing our jobs. Our response time for an emergency call is just over 4 minutes. Other communities, it's upwards of 12 minutes. Non-emergency calls, so that's your car got broken into, or your average call is about 20 minutes. And we do this with a staffing of 57 police officers. We have 4 part-time police officers that have full-time jobs elsewhere and give back by volunteering and in our community. And we have another 40 professional staff to support us in that mission. All of the statistics are available for you. And the theme is more community engagement and more transparency. Our crime mapping, our data and dashboard are available to everyone in this room at any given time, going to our website and clicking the crime mapping button. Ours is called a community dashboard, and it tracks all crimes in the community, plots it on a map, date, time, lots of data. You can go back 90 days? 90 days now, thank you very much. We expanded that just recently. And it's available to everyone if you want to see that. One of the new things that we've started this year is a full-time community impact team. And that community impact team is using Measure E dollars to address those items which are community concerns. Those are calls for homelessness. They pair with Debbie's team for outreach and engagement. They also are the enforcement arm for your community, taking care of issues when they need to be dealt with from a public safety or from a law enforcement perspective. Those are both business-related and community-related issues. We have our community team, our CIT team, as we call them, addressing all of the other crime spikes. If we have a particular crew that comes in and hits maybe a few of your business fronts along Grand Avenue or Route 66, this team will go out and start doing surveillance at night, and we'll embed ourselves in those areas where those problems are happening and allow us to hopefully dissuade it from happening again, but better than that, track down who's doing it and prosecute them the best we can. We also collaborate with our community relations division. That's a CSO who works for us, and her job is community engagement and providing community resources. And so that team works collaboratively together, an enforcement arm and an education arm. Both recovery after someone, hopefully not you in the room, but after someone is victimized, if their car's broken into or such, and also getting information out to maybe prevent that burglary or that theft from happening before it starts. And then again, they work interdepartmentally with public works teams, traffic safety committee meetings, anything that there's a community concern or a problem that needs attention. This is the team that we send to handle that. And this is done using our Measure E funds. It's a dedicated 2-person team. We also have 6 part-time team members that are police officers on regular patrol shifts and will come in and supplement the team for overtime assignments to help fix this. There are variable schedules. Don't ask me when they work, because they come and go at all hours of the day and night, depending on what the problem is. And it's a coordinated effort guided by that sergeant right there, Sergeant Lai of the Detective Bureau. His job is to wrangle them in and point them in the right direction based on whatever problem is being presented to us. Last, I'll just finish with a quick update. For a technology side, for us, bettering our response and our ability to respond to the community, we've installed flock cameras. City Council approved that last year. There are 30 cameras that are on poles throughout the city, every entrance and exit. They scan vehicles. Not just license plate, but vehicle specifics. So if a crime happens in your neighborhood and we're looking for a white van with a ladder on the top, we will find a white van with a ladder on top, and that'll give us an investigative lead, track that person down, arrest them, recover that property. We also have a universal CAD system and RMS system. It's a fancy word for a dispatch module and a report system. It makes streamlining our work more efficient. This year we employed, just recently, body cams. So every officer, every code enforcement officer in the field, and everyone who's in uniform, including detectives and the CIT, wears a body camera. This provides for better transparency and a much better record of an enforcement contact. Fleet cameras just got updated also, so the in-car camera that you see in police cars, when one camera goes hot, the cars go hot as well, and vice versa. They all communicate via Bluetooth, so it takes the human element out of, oops, I forgot to turn my camera on. We also did the interview room cameras, and we did some software upgrades. You saw that we started taking in concealed weapon permit processing. We employ a program that's web-based, again, on our website, which is a portal for a community member if they want to apply for a CCW permit, which is carrying a concealed weapon, and streamline the process. Also, we've updated our training and other statistical things that we have to send both to the state of California Department of Justice and to the FBI. On the other side, though, is the part that oftentimes goes unlooked, is the people who offer this to you and provide this service to you need to be taken care of. And so we're focusing really heavily on wellness in our police department. We'd like to retain the employees that we have now. We'd like to recruit new employees for the future. We did that by changing some uniforms around. We have a top to bottom training plan, which involves staff development, how to retain them, help them with succession planning and promotions, and finally, making us attractive in the San Gabriel Valley for those who want to provide public safety service, be a police officer here in your community. This is my community, as Mr. Mayor talked about. Mom still lives here, do everything in Glendora. I have been here since 1989, and I have thoroughly enjoyed being a city community member and a city employee, and I'm just happy to be a part of this. Thank you very much.
You know, it's one of the things when we had our strategic planning meeting last week, we talked about a vision plan for the future of the city of Glendora. And one thing that came up in that we hadn't thought about before was to make sure that Glendora continues to be a safe place. And I thought about it after the fact. I'm going, okay, how have we left that out, all of this? It's because we sometimes take it for granted. We know that our PD does a great job. I think there's a lot of support in the community for law enforcement in general, but specifically for Glendora PD, and they've earned that from us. And I believe that they also reach out, and they have a lot of support for the community. A lot of our officers have grown up here and live here. So they got a lot of things going on. Things do happen in Glendora. Those of you that will use the affectionate term of Glendora, because nothing happens in the city of Glendora. You ever take a look at the police calls, you know things are happening, and these guys are taking care of it for us. It's much appreciated. Next, we're going to get into potholes. Okay? So Moises is going to be on the thing here, but you know, the infrastructure of the city, one of the things that happens is a city like Glendora gets to a certain point that our infrastructure is dated. We've got a lot of water pipes that are very, very old that need to be replaced. When it comes to resurfacing roads and doing things, doing it and completely resurfacing a road, sometimes you have to dig up the entire foundation of the road to make something happen. So it's not as easy to get people talking about, okay, we passed Measure E, why aren't all the roads fixed? I'll use the term on a regular basis that we've got about 200 miles of roads here in town. And if we have the ability to redo 5 miles a year, it's going to take us 40 years to get it done. But we have a team that does a great job. Moises was actually the best decision that Adam's made since he came here, when he stole him from the city of Riverside and brought him here. And so I'd like to welcome up our Assistant City Manager and Interim Public Works Department Head, Moises Lopez.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm not as good as the chief or Adam being able just to riff it, so I've got a few notes to keep me on task and more importantly to keep me on time because we're all on the clock here. So we'll start off talking about everyone's favorite subject, streets. Particularly after rainfalls, we're very, very busy. Several years ago, we conducted a study to evaluate the condition of all of our streets, and we used that study as a basis to plan and program street improvements throughout our community. As part of our current 2-year budget and associated capital improvement plan, we've improved more than 21 lane miles of streets over the last 2 years. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, just on Tuesday, City Council approved the last of 8 major road-related and water infrastructure projects that were programmed in our budget. Our goal is to make sure that we do that in a timely basis so that all of us benefit from nice, smooth roads and with appropriate infrastructure below ground. For some context, as the mayor said, we've got about 200 lane miles of roads throughout the city. That includes alleyways. About 157 of those are the ones that most of us are familiar with, arterials and our local road networks. So over the last 4 years, we've improved approximately 52 lane miles of those 157. This will remain a focus for us as we move forward as part of our next 2-year budget cycle. It's something that's been identified as important, as Adam mentioned, in the community survey, and so we're going to continue investing in that. The map you see on the screen right now actually identifies every single project that is currently underway. We've got a little bit of a delay related to construction because of some supply chain issues as well as the weather that we've been experiencing over the course of the last few weeks. But our goal is to get all of these projects under construction by the end of the year or completed before the end of the year. So we're making progress on that front. And I should point out, if you see a pothole, please report it. As many staff members as we have working out in the community, we can't see everything. So if you see something out of place, you see a pothole, you see some trash, you see a shopping cart, please give us a call, shoot us an email, send Adam a text message. I guarantee you we will get to it within 24 hours. I'll give you all his cell phone number too if you'd like. While it doesn't really feel like it, as the mayor pointed out, we still remain in drought conditions. The Metropolitan Water District took some actions recently to alleviate some of those mandates from some of those communities. Unfortunately, we remain in that stage 3 conservation stage. So we challenged our community members about 6 months ago to begin, or longer than that actually, to conserve water by about 20%. Very pleased to report to you that for the last 6 months, our residents have not only met that number, but exceeded it. So we're making some very good progress on that front. As it relates to rain, we've received a little more than 33 inches of rain. We've measured that at the Big Dalton Canyon. That figure is as of yesterday, so it doesn't include what we received overnight this morning. That's 8 inches more than what our seasonal average is, so we're getting a lot of rain. Actually, water infrastructure throughout the state of California right now is at or near their capacity because of the incredible amount of rain that we've received. To give you a little bit more perspective, the snowpack in the Sierras is at about 173% of normal. That's actually the highest dating back to the 1982, that was the point at which it was the highest then. So we're well on our way to help address a lot of the issues that we're experiencing now. Want to highlight an important partnership as part of our water conservation programs. We entered into an agreement with the gas company. You heard me correct, the gas company. They do a lot of water efficient programs and direct installations. We're going to be launching that program shortly. It comes alongside several other programs that we currently have in place that benefit our residents and the business community. So please check out our website, take advantage of the resources that are currently being made available. Two quick projects that we're working on are our school districts. We have a very exciting partnership with GUSD where we're actually doing water surveys. We will be paying for direct installation of new toilets, faucets, sinks, that sort of thing to generate some savings. We're doing the same thing with Charter Oak USD, and I think Charter Oak is actually a little ahead with the surveys at the moment, but we'll get rolling with GUSD shortly as well. Water infrastructure assessment. Our water system is arguably the most important asset that this community has. And so we need to take care of it, not just for the short term, but for the long term, as the mayor mentioned as part of his comments. So we've undertaken a system-wide assessment to evaluate its condition. The first phase of that was really looking at everything that the water system entails. So that means every pipe, every meter, every valve, every water storage facility was looked at, was evaluated, was mapped. We have a conditions assessment. We know what we need to replace over the next 5, 10, 15 years and how much money it's going to take. Phase 2 of that process actually involves making sure that we've got enough money to make those improvements over the next 5, 10, 15 years. It's incredibly important that we continue investing in our infrastructure. Water is a very scarce resource, and to the extent that we can be responsible stewards of that resource and the infrastructure that supports it, we're all going to be better off for that. We're nearing completion of this work. We're working towards hosting a joint City Council Water Commission meeting in the not too distant future, so please be on the lookout for that, where we're going to have a much more detailed conversation related to that important project. Last but not least, a People Movement Project. How many of you know or have heard of the People Movement Project? Great. Not just city staff, so that's good. So Stephen Mateer, who is here, is actually doing his job. So the People Movement Project encompasses two different smaller projects. One is the first last mile improvements. As some of you know, the Gold Line is coming. It's currently under construction. The second project involves making improvements to the 3 flood control channels that bisect our city. So the Little Dalton Wash, the Big Dalton Wash, and the San Dimas Wash. So the first last mile project was developed in anticipation of the Gold Line improvements. We want to create a much more pedestrian friendly environment on Glendora Avenue, connect the village down to the station so that when our residents and visitors that come into our community can easily make their way to the heart of our community. The goal is very simple. We're not just doing this because it looks pretty or because it's in vogue. It's very much about pedestrian safety, bicyclist safety, driver safety, and also we want to create a much more active and attractive environment for our businesses to flourish in. So when complete, the project will build out more than 10 miles of active transportation throughout our community. The build out of this project is estimated about $20 million. I'm also very happy to share with you that we've secured about $13 million of it. So various components of this project are already underway. You'll see those improvements start at the latter part of this calendar year, early part of next year. And I really want to appreciate the support from our legislative staff and our legislators at both the state and federal level that have been not only supportive, but have secured substantial amounts of funding to make this project work. With that, Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you.
You know, one of the things one of the big changes that we've had here in the community over the last number of years is that we've done a great job, the team has done a great job finding money for projects. Glendora, we're a very fiscally conservative community. The residents are, the city always has been. But the attitudes changed recently because the bottom line is there's money, whether it be federal, state, or county money, there's money that's going to be spent on projects. And I gotta say that we've done a great job the last number of years, which is why we're able to address a lot of the infrastructure issues that we are. One of the things, just to give you, I gotta share this story, I might get in trouble for it, but Adam has a term all the time that he goes, it's a Glendora thing. It's a Glendora thing. And those of us that have lived here for a long time, you may or may not understand that. But we actually had one of our water tanks that was sitting on private property. At some point in the past, we had a guy that basically, we needed to put a water tank up in the hills, and we asked if we could, and he said, sure. It's 2023, life's a lot more complicated than that now. So things like that we have done here for decades, sometimes it may not make sense. Sometimes you can think to yourself, well, we've always done it that way, so we can continue to. We're not able to do that anymore. And so we appreciate all the work, and you will continue to see improvements in the community. And I especially want to give a shout out to Stephen and his team, because we have seen some changes made when you're driving around and you see traffic changes, and all of a sudden something happens. And you're going, wait a second, what happened here? Well, what is happening now? We're getting a lot of experimental projects being done. They're test projects that we're putting things out that are temporary, like what we're seeing in the village right now. Let's take a look at this. Let's put the striping in place. We'll test it. We'll see what it's like. We already discovered one mistake that was done down there, but the mistake's not permanent. It can be fixed. And these guys have done an amazing job in making sure that we're testing these things, we're working on it before we go full boat into making permanent changes that we're all gonna have to live with. Well, next up, I was talking to John and Gary coming up next, the Community Services Director. And those of you know John was born and raised here in Glendora. He grew up here. He has been involved in, you've worked for the city for over 30 years now, haven't you? You're gonna retire sometime? But you're still only 50 or 52 years old or 42 years old, I don't know. But John's lived here his whole life. You see him involved in so many different things. All of you and your kids and grandkids have had interaction with John at some point, if you're very involved in community service and things at the parks and everything. So, John, I'll turn it over to you. Come on up.
Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking on city park projects and homelessness. Our first project was at Gladstone Park. We removed the 1.5 million gallon tank that was not working at the time. It hasn't been working for about 25 years. We added 21 new parking stalls for a total of 47 there. And the project also included drought-tolerant plants and water-efficient irrigation. Also at Gladstone Park, we used the California State Prop 68 per capita grant, and we built the first in Glendora all-inclusive playground, and we resurfaced both playgrounds with the pour-in-place surfacing. We got rid of those rubber chunks that would be everywhere but the tot lots, so we had that. After many residents' requests at Dawson Tennis Courts next to the Teen Center, we'll be converting one of our 6 tennis courts into 4 pickleball courts. So Glendora will have their first pickleball courts. This project is scheduled for the end of this month, weather permitting. We will be looking there. Our next project, which it just got approved through council, will be remodeling the restrooms. We will be putting new fencing around the tennis courts and refurbishing again one of our 2 tennis courts there to add another 4 pickleball courts, so we'll have 8 in the city. Phase 2 of the project will include upgrading of the lights, new concrete paths, and the removal of the playground surfacing to again pour and play surfacing. Also at Finkbeiner Park, we've been working on a storm water capture project. At this time, we are only in design. When the project will get funded, we will be installing a 19 acre-foot underground infiltration tank beneath the 4 softball fields. And once completed, we'll be adding 4 new artificial turf softball fields with a overlay soccer field. We will also get new sports lighting, new fencing, and we'll be adding a new half-court basketball court. We are working with Avid Bike Trails to do it at South Hills Park. We're looking to do a bike park and trail design project. This project is only design at this time. We are looking to put in 2 pump tracks on the west side of South Hills, along with new bike trails and refurbished hiking trails. The design and the cost should be completed in May, and we have staff working on grants at this time for that project. And our last project that we're working on is the Louis Pompey Memorial Sports Park Turf Project. We will be taking all the grass of the remaining 4 fields out and putting in artificial turf. We also, at this time, we will putting in new shade structure. We have no shade structure down there at the park. We'll be putting it in at all seating areas. So we hope that the turf project will have shovels in the ground mid-May, and both projects there should be done in late October. Homelessness, as you saw in our slides, that's one of our #1 concerns. The City of Glendora continues to be proactively addressing the ongoing challenges of homelessness. Our approach is guided with the city's homeless action plan, which addresses the impact of homelessness on our community and while engaging and providing individuals experiencing homelessness with the access to resources. First, I'd like to give a shout out to our homeless task force, Debbie Lopez with the Community Services Department, Officer Meeker with our Glendora Police Department, and then our contractor LA CADA. The city has applied for and received over $942,000 in grants. We have paid for over 8,000 nights for the unsheltered. We have reunified 21 people with their families. We've moved 85 people to Project Room Key, and we are continually working with LA County Department of Mental Health to provide mental health services. The Point in Time Camp, which is conducted each year in January by the Los Angeles Homeless Service Authority, along with our city staff and many volunteers. Participants in the pit count, are assigned areas of the city by census tracts and collect data via the mobile application. LASA will then compile that data, prepare a report, and turn it into the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, which then will publish these figures in June, at which we will know our 2023 homeless numbers. The pit count continues to lower over the past few years. In 2020, our pit count identified 145 individuals experiencing homelessness. In 2022, we identified 84. This represents a reduction of 61 people, a 42% decrease. In May of 2022, the city entered into a contract with Los Angeles Center of Alcohol and Drug Abuse to provide homeless outreach and housing navigation services. The contract provided 2 full-time outreach workers and exclusive access to 8 emergency shelter beds to provide critically needed temporary housing. In December of 2022, La Cata had a caseload of 54 individuals 25 of which they interact with more than once every 2 weeks. Homeless encampment cleanups have been a major undertaking for the city. In 2022, the city conducted 24 large-scale cleanups throughout the city. The cleanups have resulted in the removal of approximately 73 tons of trash and debris. Glendora remains committed to caring for our community and ensuring the safety and well-being of all our members. The results achieved are the results of a collaborative effort by the Community Services Department, Public Works Department, and the Glendora Police Department. While there remains work to be done, the support of the City Council over the past few years to increase resources to address the challenges have yielded positive results. City staff is committed to share the work, what we are doing, and the progress we are making with our community. Thank you.
You know, I got to tell you, when we talk about some of the jobs that many of our city staff deal with are dramatically different than they were just a few years ago. The world's changing. Whether we like it or not, the world's changing, and we have to change with it. When we talk about the homeless situation, I think it's important for everybody here to know that we are, at the city level, we're talking about trying to find a location for a homeless shelter in town. It's something that is necessary. Regardless of where you stand, we all agree that nobody should be sleeping on the streets. It just shouldn't be happening. So we're looking into it, we're trying to find it. No matter where this site ends up being, there's going to be some people that are not happy with it. But I think it's important that we all acknowledge the fact that it is time, and it's something that we need to do. I will tell you that I can almost guarantee you every one of those people that are living on the streets in the city of Glendora, our PD knows their name, they know their history, they know where they come from, they know what their problems are. You'd be shocked as to how many of the people that are living on our streets are homegrown. There's one young man that we've had living on the streets for a number of years that Kathy and I have known since he's 10 years old. Drug issues, mental health issues, and he's finally been reunited with his family, and things are going much better for him. But he was a nuisance, and many of you saw him and you sort of looked the other way. Well, he's somebody's kid. And we all need to acknowledge that this is an issue for the entire city that we need to take a harder look at. So I want to commend Debbie and her team, PD, and everybody that's working on this issue, and we're going to get that from being the most important issue that we're dealing with. So next up, we're going to have Jeff Kugel, Jeff Kugel, Community Development Director. Jeff also lives here in the city of Glendora, so when you guys talk about things that are happening and plans that are being made, it's personal to him and his family as well. Jeff also is a band parent, volunteered here at the Glendora High Band, and is a musician himself. And so when Mendel does his Michael Jackson thing, maybe you can be playing a guitar for him. So I'd like to welcome up Jeff Kugel.
At the beginning of the presentation, as Adam was going through some of the community surveys we had, and there were those years, 13, 14, 15, 16, where growth and development was the biggest area of concern. And when development is part of your job title, and that's what you're here to do, you kind of worry about that. So about mid-2016, they put me in a cryogenic sleep like Austin Powers. And about a week ago, Adam woke me up, and he said, it's safe to come out. We're gonna have you talk about change. We're bringing you back, and so I'm glad to be here after being in hibernation for 7 or 8 years. And when I went to sleep, we only had 1 Starbucks. Now we have 5. So crazy. The subjects I want to talk about and go through really quickly, it really is looking forward in the community. And the topics and things that are affecting us that are going to change, and I've been thinking about externally and internally what's going on in the community. You know, we have the Gold Line coming. There are challenges with transportation regionally, just moving people. There's a housing crisis in the state. There's a big push to develop and promote housing at the state level, and we've had to locally adopt policies to do that. Glendora is a very mature, dare I say, aging environment, both in its population as well as the built environment within the community. And so I'm going to talk about these 5 items that are listed here: housing, housing, and more housing. I'm going to posit or make the argument that more housing and rooftops does bring more economic development and amenities to the community. And we retain, even though the state is doing a lot to require that we do things here locally and require that we change our codes and development standards in certain ways, we still have the ability to zone for what we want. And then lastly, the ability also to do what we can to push for targeted economic development and for that 6th Starbucks. So, housing, and more housing. Every 8 years, the city is required, every city in the state of California is required to plan for its fair share of housing. And in this last year, this last cycle, the cycle that the council just adopted the housing element of the city's general plan for the years covering 2021 to 2029. And the city was required to plan for over 2,000 units. And so we had to identify sites within the city where those units would go. And primarily those units are along the major corridors of the city, including Arrow Highway around the future Gold Line station, and along Arrow Highway as well as Route 66. State laws are also increased, and I would say that, you know, over 2,000 units does seem like a lot. And it would, if they were built within that period, it would represent an approximately 12% increase in housing units in the city, and probably a population increase of 5,000 to 6,500 people, which is about a 10% increase in the city's current population. In addition, there have been a number of state laws affecting how cities plan for housing. All of those laws revolve, whether it be, as listed up here, the accessory dwelling units law, making standards for development objective versus subjective. Cities have a tendency to create all sorts of discretionary review processes which make it even more difficult and the process longer to develop housing or any type of development. And the state has required that we remove some of those barriers from our code, which we're going to be undertaking over the next couple of years. In addition, the state is requiring that we plan and be proactive in planning for housing that meets households of all incomes and types and sizes. The city of Glendora, the predominant housing type is the single-family home, which takes up the majority of land in the city. And so among the things we're doing is planning for different types of housing in the community, and planning for that and hoping that we will attract some of that investment over the next several years. Rooftops bring amenities. This is, I think, what brings and makes economic development. Is a hotly debated topic, but the fact is that, you know, housing growth and development is economic development. It's the type of development that creates jobs. It increases property values in the community. It expands the market for commercial development. You have more people, you have more opportunities for commercial amenities and commercial shopping centers and things like that. And it also provides tax revenue, both directly and indirectly, that sustain our public services like police and parks and libraries. During that period, you know, leading up to my involuntary hibernation in 2016, we had developed, between 2013 and 2021, there were about 620 housing units developed in the city. About 550 of those units occurred at 3 projects in the city. And those were all occurring before 20. You can imagine which 3 projects they were: the Avalon Bay at the corner of Glendora and Route 66, the Motif project also on Route 66, and then the condominium development at Grand and Foothill. Those 3 projects comprised 550 units to the city. And also, I think, serve to revitalize some of the areas around it, particularly as we saw the redevelopment of the old Ralph Shopping Center into the Sprouts and into the Marshalls. But that's not all that's happened. There are other things that have happened. The city has experienced growth in its major commercial areas, both in the Lone Hill Marketplace with a lot of expansion that I'm going to get to in just a second here. So, what can we do? What can we zone for? How does the city determine what it wants to do and how it wants to grow? So the city's primary planning document is the general plan, and I mentioned that the housing element is just one component of that general plan. The last time the city undertook a visioning process to develop a new long-range plan for itself was about 20 years ago in the early 2000s, and that is the city's general plan is Community Plan 2025, and we will be coming up on that year in just a couple of years here. And I wanted to sort of recap what some of the new ideas 20 years ago that the city and the folks who participated in that planning process introduced. One of them was mixed-use development and goals, both in the village area along Route 66 and along Arrow Highway, and we've seen some of that development in those places. Also to expand housing opportunities in those areas, to expand employment-related businesses in the marketplace and along Route 66. I think the marketplace in particular, even when I started working in the city around 2008, since then you've had the Ulta Beauty build out, you've had the Guitar Center, Aldi, Raising Cane's, another Starbucks, as well as other things, and there was a major expansion to the Walmart, and of course to the Sprouts Center as well. Those are the major, I think, commercial projects that have occurred over really the last several years and during the current period of the general plan. So up next for the city is Community Plan 2050, or an opportunity to vision for the community to vision for how it grows and develops and what type of legacy this generation of Glendorans leaves the generation that is here at a State of the City in the year 2050. What will we say that we did? What type of community will we pass on to the next generation? And so we are at a critical juncture, I think, in the community's planning life. Lastly, pushing for targeted economic development. The city's also undertaken, not to mention just housing with this, but has an economic development plan, which we have implemented over the last several years. It was first adopted in, I think, actually 2013 or 14, updated in 2017, and we'll be doing that again. But some of the main accomplishments were, particularly during the COVID period, we received funding and distributed $1.6 million in loans to approximately 65 businesses in town. Most of the businesses in town, as you know, are small mom and pop in single operator businesses, and they primarily serve the residential community, whether it be small restaurants, small retailers, and others. And so it was very important to the city to be actively promoting and assisting those businesses to make it through the COVID period. In addition, we've partnered with the Chamber of Commerce to hold seminars for small business people to assist them in developing business plans, their marketing efforts, as well as operational best management practices for those businesses. Targeted sites. If you drive around the city, I know I always hear, the first thing is, what's going on with the Flag gas station? That's the top question on everybody's mind. It used to be, what's going on with the vacant flower store at the corner of Grand and Route 66? But since that was developed, I never get asked that question anymore. But you have seen, we have major vacancies at the Sport Chalet Shopping Center. We have a vacant Vons on Arrow Highway, the former Vons, as well as we just learned that the Tuesday Morning Center is going to close. Bed Bath & Beyond will also close. So those are priority sites, along with these that are mentioned on the slide, that we are actively working with the property owners, working with the commercial brokerage community, doing what we can to identify those types of businesses that are missing from Glendora, who would want spaces like that as ways to revitalize those shopping centers. But I do want to say that I think that, a lot of the areas that you notice, particularly on our major corridors, do need some reinvestment, particularly on Route 66, even more so than Arrow Highway. They really do need reinvestment, and one of the ways to get there, I do strongly believe, is to allow the community to grow. There was a period when growth and development was a major concern. It dropped off because nothing is happening, because the community said stop, and so we stopped. And really since 2016, 2017, you haven't seen any major housing development since that time. And I think the community spoke and the city definitely listened. But again, here I'm back. I guess we're going to crank this thing up again, see what happens. And with that, I will turn it over to the next speaker.
Thanks, Jeff. It's one of those things I always, when I talk to residents, people have the same attitude that I do. We should have stopped building housing right after mine was built, okay? And secondly, I want my property value to be extremely high, but I want to make sure that down the street it's lower so that my grandkids are going to have a place to live near me. So we can't have everything that we want. Jeff's doing an amazing job, and maybe, just maybe, we backed off a little bit too far, and it is time to start taking a look at this again, because no growth is not good for anybody. And as you see in our population, we haven't had that growth, and it's definitely not good for our schools. So last, I got a question for everybody. Back in the 1950s and 60s, there was a TV show, Tarzan. Everybody knows who Tarzan was? Okay, how many people here know the name of Tarzan's chimpanzee companion? Anybody? We got one back here. We got a couple. Okay, just a few. Yeah, you know what? There's a lot of old faces in here. More than that was one of the questions in the trivia challenge we had last week that I had to ask of my wife and my grandkids, and they didn't know the answer, so I was in trouble when I got home. So next up, we have the lady who can paint a picture with words, and we put her last because she's the best speaker we have. And none of us wanted to go after her, our librarian, Janet Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and hello, everyone. So Jeff's whole message was couched in terms of change coming. And you also heard that from other folks as well. So it might not surprise you that we're going to keep talking about the future, specifically the library of the future. What might surprise you is that when it comes to the library of the future, you've already seen it. And like many parts of our lives, the Library of Future came into greater focus during the greater restrictions of the pandemic. The Library of the Future never closes. And thanks to the determination of the library's staff, and thanks to the support of city leadership, we did not close during COVID. The main floor of the library building did close in March of 2020 and finally returned to its full prior hours in July of 2021. But during that time, the library was open. We had 740 computer center visits. We had 4,000 virtual programming visits online. Thanks to the Friends Foundation, we had 6,600 to-go program bags with crafts and activities to take home, and thanks also to them for supporting several of these initiatives. 13,200 library to-go curbside visits, over 46,000 checkouts from our e-library, and almost 120,000 searches of our subscription resources. We did not close. We asked our customers what this meant to them, and one of them said, "Because of the Glendora Public Library, I have been able to grow as a person." And during a time of global crisis, that's pretty profound. So if the main floor was closed, but the library was open, that begs the question, what is the library really? A building by itself is not the public library. Even a building filled with these is not a public library, because this is a container. It's a container of ideas. It is not the only kind of container. Data conduits and people, and even the sound waves between people, also contain ideas. So what is the public library? The public library is an effort. It's a belief. It's a philosophy that provides and ensures access to the world of ideas and that grows that world. In the decades to come, people will feel the public library more and more as this impact, this intentional service that makes the world of ideas accessible and makes them so regardless of their packaging or their lack of it. Right now, many of our hearts may feel the library in the shape of our building at 140 South Glendora, with its shelves of books and its beautiful views from the Bidwell Forum and the plaza. So let's talk a little bit about why that is, about what the public library building means. The library building is a home for many things. It showcases our physical materials, and it provides access to the ideas inside them. That's the important part. It's our home for managing our online resources, making sure you have access globally 24/7 to the world of ideas. It's also a place for gathering and for growing the world of ideas. It's a home for you. And it's also that place where your families of relation, your families of shared interest, and yes, even your families of debate. It's a place for them all to wonder, to laugh, and to learn. It's the headquarters for our expert staff that make all of this happen. And it's a continuing response to changing community aspirations. What you need in 2027 and 2037 and 2072. Although Glendora Public Library as a service and philosophy has been around for more than a century, our library building, which opened in 1972, turned 50 in 2022. And like many of us at that age, its joints are a little tired. And it offers sort of spotty protection from the rain. And though we know it's safe to stand, we're not so sure about the long-term state of its bones. So we are going to go through an in-depth structural analysis and an evaluation for possible major renovations. We are looking at the building seismically and scientifically, but also programmatically, not just what it takes to withstand an earthquake, but what it takes to respond to new needs in the community over the next 50 years, like curbside service, or staying 6 feet apart, or being able to offer client meeting spaces one year and telemedicine spaces the next year. And of course, just like you are, 140 South Glendora is part of something larger. It's part of the Civic Center, it's part of the extended village, and it's part of the corridor from the future L line stop up to the foothills. There's a whole hub there. So alongside our structural analysis, there will be chances for some of that community engagement that Adam referred to. There's going to be some community-based placemaking. Now, as the Project for Public Spaces puts it, placemaking is to collectively reimagine and reinvent public spaces as the heart of every community. So stay tuned for that. There will also be chances to take part in community surveying and information seeking. So just as you heard about the recurring community survey, the city's planning to reach out to find out where your hearts and your minds want to be in the coming decades, and how we can create a library building to keep responsive to those hopes, even as they change. The library of the future is here. It strives to make sure that information is accessible, lifelong, enduring, organized, in context, valued, and sustainable. When we shape the library building of the future together, it's one manifestation of that commitment. It's our collective belief in the world of ideas given architectural form. And we look forward to growing that idea with all of you. Thank you very much.
I told you, okay? That's why we don't like to follow her. We went a little bit long, but I just, real quick, we got questions. People have questions. We typically are going to have a question and answer period, but because we went long, I don't want to hold anybody any longer than we need to. No questions? I like it. Okay, well, if we have a couple, maybe if I could just ask everybody that spoke to step back up here for a few minutes, and we'll see. Marilyn, you can bring it up. So Adam, Moises, Janet, come on back up. Yes, Marilyn. Okay, Marilyn's question was about she phrased it as a Arrow Highway relook. I'll let Jeff speak to what has been done about Arrow Highway.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Arrow Highway
I was
specific
walking
plan.
up. Well, the Arrow Highway specific plan?
Yeah.
Sure, okay, so the question was about the Arrow Highway specific plan. So in 2018, the City Council adopted a specific plan for the Arrow Highway corridor. It rezoned a lot of the area, mostly east of Glendora Avenue, to mixed use and residential. Since the Arrow Highway specific plan was adopted, I think the development that's directly resulted from that one was a rehabilitation and reuse of the old Wonder Bread building, the Hostess building, into the Glendora food hall, and there's a microbrewery in there. There's a 16-unit residential development next to it. And then the council just approved another 33-unit residential development about mid-block, or midway between Glendora and Sunflower. And we have two other residential development projects that we are currently processing. From an economic development perspective, the primary focus is really the vacant Vons shopping center at this point, or the vacant Vons itself. And we've been in contact with the property owner. We're aware of different users that would be good for the site who have been looking at it, and some even as far as negotiating, but nothing currently is going on to fill that space. And so that is...
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Yes?
I'd just like to lift up our police and thank them so much for their service.
Well, thank you. Well, if we have no other questions, we got you guys to walk back up here for nothing. Let's give everybody a big hand. We got a lot of information today. Please take everything you learned here today, share it with your neighbors, your coworkers, your friends, your family. There's a lot of stuff going on in the city of Glendora, and our future is bright. Have a good day, everybody.